What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Hopefully everyone's having a fabulous Wednesday. I'm still here. The house hasn't burned down, so it's a good sign, good week. Hopefully everyone is doing good out there. I know there's been fires and hurricanes and everything else in the world lately, so it's been a bit crazy. So how are you guys doing today? Hope the weather is getting calmer. Today is the clearest day we've had in a good week. Like, you can actually see the mountains today, where I could barely see a couple blocks the other day. So it's a good day today. JCS Reefing, Rory, Manoj, Macy's Daddy, Louie and Heidi, John, Gao. Hopefully everyone is doing good. Rookie Reefer, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining me from across the pond. I'll have to get you on again one day, man. It's been a while. So today I figured I didn't really plan much today. So just doing a random Q&A live stream. So whatever questions, whatever you guys want to dig into, I am down. Mohammed, hello from Saudi Arabia. Hello from Canada. Thanks for joining. Welcome, One Iron Reefer. Next week's live stream, the housekeeping, I believe I have Lou from Tropic Marin come on. So that should be another really good one. And well, I'm thinking of it on Facebook, ReefDudes Facebook page. I posted a contest giveaway for a Dostronic DC, and I believe that ends on Friday. So if you haven't entered yet, I would definitely recommend that. Doghouse Reefer, what's happening? So yeah, the last week has been crazy for me. There has been imminent fires in the valley where I live right now, and the whole mountain was on fire across the lake, and the wind was so crazy a couple days it jumped the lake onto our side. And yeah, so that's been a bit sketchy. It's like one of those things where the bags are packed, you know, and thinking, do I gotta leave? Do I gotta worry about the reef tanks? I've had some local friends where same thing, you know, like they had to leave their house. They had evacuation orders, and you know, checking how their tank's doing, and it's hard when you're not allowed to go back to that area. So it's been a crazy couple of weeks, so I'm happy things are finally looking pretty good today. Tank wise, the water box overall is being pretty good. This one had a bunch of cyano and stuff dealing with it, and for some reason I figured it'd be a good idea to treat it and deal with it during the middle of all the fire madness. So now it's pristine after a chemi-clean treatment, so I did film that kind of process, and that'll probably be a future video. But overall, so give that one a good treatment, and I've had the skimmer just doing my water change for me. So I've let that plunk away all day. So yeah, things are good. One Arm Reefer Doghouse. As for that, what else have I got exciting? There hasn't been a lot changed with the tanks just because of the crazy chaos the last little bit. So what do you guys got for topics? What do you want to dig into today? Let me know. 42 watching, only 4 likes. The gasp. If you guys enjoy it, hit the like button. You want me to answer those questions? Little like love is good. How you doing, Phil? Hope you're doing good. Woody's gamer tag. What's going on, Woody? Had a bad bryopsis problem 4 days into fluconazole, and the improvement is great. Aside from NO3 PO4 levels, they're always low. What advice would you give to avoid bounce back issues? Okay, fluconazole is really like the only quick and easy fix that you have to deal with bryopsis. It does work very, very well. I've used it at hair algae at a double dose or triple dose in the past, so it's pretty easy to not really worry about overdosing it. Now, as for, I haven't really had any follow-up when using that. Like, it's been fluconazole in the past. Aside from NO3 and PO4 levels low, honestly, the biggest thing is either export less or feed more, import more. So, for example, if your skimmer is, you know, running 24 hours, maybe only run it for 12 hours. Or if you have your refugium, reduce the hours on it. Or just feed more, add more fish. I mean, fish poop's a nice easy way to, and food is a nice easy way to add more NO3, PO4 to your tank. If you're only deficient in one, of course, you can't always do the addition of like the neonitro, neophos, or similar brands of stuff. Reefkeeper Dev, when you do chemi-clean treatment, do you go 48 hours longer? I go longer. I find 48-hour mark, it's probably like 75% better, and I feel the next day is when it's almost all gone. So this would be day 3 for me. I started my treatment on Friday or Saturday. Yeah, I believe last Sunday night was 48 hours, and there's still a bit in there, so I left it, and then tomorrow morning I looked at it, and it was basically everything's pristine. So I'm gonna say more 48. What is that? 60 hours, 60 to 72 hour range is when I find it fully does its job. Again, there'll be a video out on this because I just kind of filmed clips as I went. But I mean, after you're done, you can do a big water change. That's one option. Or what I tend to like to do is just hook up a drain hose. Can't fully see, it's below my desk, but a drain hose to the skimmer cup and just let it go to a bucket, and then just let the skimmer basically do your water change. That way, if you do water change, you're removing lots of good stuff as well, where the skimmer is only going to remove the stuff that's making the skimmer go crazy, and that's the main thing you care about doing it. So that's always been my method. Brandon Scott Art. Hello, ReefDudes. Hello, Brandon. Where's Dan? Are emerald crabs reef safe, and can they help remove green hair algae? In general, yes, they are reef safe. They are great for bubble algae. They will also pick at hair algae. So yes, they will definitely work. As long as there's lots of food, they're reef safe. As with any creature, if they're overly hungry, they may become opportunistic and pick at, possibly corals or other stuff. But as long as there's lots of food for them, then they're perfectly reef safe in my eyes. JCS, what's your thoughts on having a motor to mix calc in a 10-gallon reservoir? I know it wouldn't be fed by RDI, but it'd be more potent before stirring or dosing. If you are making a vessel and dosing it at fully saturated calc, it will dissolve your 2 teaspoons per gallon, I believe it is. If you have a motor constantly mixing it, you're going more the slurry route. And that's if you want to add way more powder than you needed in there. Now it's a bit of a trade-off because calc will lose potency over time in a vessel. That's usually why they have a lid on it. Or if you mix it and you don't have a lid, it's going to be having more oxygen exchange because the water, like if you ever look at the calc container, if you have lots in it or a calc reactor, you have a little bit of a crusty film at the top. And if you have a pump mixing it constantly, it's going to be breaking that top layer, and you might actually lose potency if you're not doing the slurry method. So that's food for thought. Mohammed Adele, what is the best time to start running a refugium for a new established tank? I don't know if you can hear my little guy next door. It's like, the best time to start running a refugium. If you don't have high nutrients, don't worry about it yet. You don't want to run a refugium if your tank is still cycling, because the algae can potentially suck up the ammonia and stall out your cycle to an extent. But if your tank's fully cycled and you want to throw a little bit of Chaeto or whatever in there and let that run for a bit, then I think you're good. But make sure your tank's fully finished its cycle first. And also you do need to have some nutrients for the algae to grow, or else it could potentially die off. High level sim. Mushroom splitting. Why has my iron split into 7 after 4 months, and I have a blue one that is still a single after 8 months? Why is your your Iron Man, that's the name of the mushroom. Split into 7. Just some are slow, some are fast, some are slow goers. I have some corals that grow like crazy, and I have others that do nothing for ages and ages, and they finally grow. Michael, how's the baby? My tiny chaos is doing great. He's super cute, and he likes to climb absolutely everything in sight now. I don't know if you can hear him or not. The noise canceling may have minimized him, but he's in the room next to me, so I can hear him. Brr, brr, brr. Mohano, liquid fluconazole from Chewy, or any specific brand, how much to dose? Currently using hydrogen peroxide. So, hydrogen peroxide I don't know how well it works for Bryopsis, to be honest, because I haven't tried it for that specific purpose, but it does work well for turf algae and hair algae and that whatnot. I believe it's whatever grams the pills are, most of them I believe is 1 per 10 gallons, if I recall. But if you look at the label on any like the aquarium brand ones, you'll get the rough idea of how much it is. Brand doesn't make a difference. It's all the exact same product. So whatever one's cheaper, sale, easier to get. One-armed Reefer. Devin, with your Peninsula, where would you put your favorite corals? Just set up a 6x3x2. Nice. And sit at the 3-foot end and just wonder where you put yours. It depends on the coral and the flow. So if you are doing a Peninsula and want to keep the pristine look, you only have your flow in the overflow wall. And this is the hardest part of a Peninsula. If you're super crazy and you drill it and have a closed loop, you can have hidden flow throughout it. But in my case, I don't want to have any pumps on the peninsula end because it takes away for that like super pristine aesthetic. Hey, pooch. So it takes away from that super pristine aesthetic. Now, if you have, so I place a lot of my corals based on the flow. So any of the higher flow corals are going to be closer to the overflow end, and the lower flow stuff is going to be more of the peninsula end. Now I still do have some macros and other stuff mixed in on the far end, but majority of it's the softer lower flow stuff. So I plan a lot of it based around that. Toast 707, long time listener, first time commenter. Welcome. You have the best reef live stream on YouTube. I appreciate what you do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thank you for the super chat. Very kind. John Reefer Vermont, so glad you're on tonight. Thank you, John. Appreciate the super chat, guys. Much appreciated. High level sim. Also, water box 25 Peninsula. Any good options for Chato box or other ideas? Personally, on a smaller tank, like a 30 gallon or lower, I would just stick to weekly water changes over that, because you don't have a lot of space for a refugium, so the impact is going to be minimal. That being said, your load is also minimal, so it absolutely can work, but I don't know, I still just feel do a water change on a small tank because you can do such a big impact with such little effort. John Wright, I feed my fish with 3D reefing cup and 100% of the food gets eaten, but when I turn off my return pump and switch it on, lots of the dead food pumped into my display. What am I doing wrong? 100% of my food gets eaten. Must be something else coming in. Like I have, let's talk about feeding cups. Some of these guys that fit into my lid, and you can put food in and let it de-thaw. So what I do when I feed the tank, I do turn the return pump off, but I let the power, I don't touch the power, I just leave them going full born just so the food stays suspended and floats around the tank. I would think it's like the Tritus or something else getting shot out into your display, not food. Would be my thing. Ben, what's going on? Mr. Title Gardens then, welcome. JCS Reef is digging the hat, by the way. Thank you. If you remember Ryan, who was on from the salt test videos, he actually has a print shop and he made me a bunch of different color variations. So Ryan, if you're watching, thank you again. I appreciate all those. So it's kind of fun. A lot of times I'll mix it up. So it's kind of fun. Woody's gamertag, just to add what ReefDudes said, I've had good luck with emerald crabs mostly. I do think they might have killed my stylo crab, but haven't bothered anything else except for algae. Yeah, so I find most crabs and inverts that are, cleanup crew are going to be fine unless they're hungry. And if they're like really hungry, they're going to be more opportunistic. And that goes with any creature, like same with fish. If you feed your tank heavy, even with multiple tanks, if you feed them heavy, they're going to be a lot more docile and a lot more peaceful. But if they're hungry, they're going to be a lot more aggressive and picking on each other. So that goes with literally any creature in the tank. I know some people feed on the light side because they're so worried about algae, but that can bring other issues. Michael Barcombe, not sure if this was asked, but I have a calc reactor with a conductivity probe. It's reading 6.8. What should it be and what should the number? Don't worry about what the number necessarily is. When you add fresh calc, see what the number is. And that's going to be your number, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, but that's your number at high potency. And you can watch it and you see when it starts to drop off, and that's when you know to add more calc. So whatever the number is doesn't really matter. It's just more of looking at that trend or more of a signal to use. Say, okay, it's time to refresh it. Mark, I'm looking to buy a harem clownfish for my harem clown rose bubble tip tank, Southern California. Any recommendations on where to buy them? I'm willing to buy online or store. I don't know for your area. Anyone that breeds clownfish, ideally if you're doing a harem tank, you do, I'd try and pick up a whole clutch of babies from the same person, and they're already friends, they already grew up together, and they should be happy. That's the way I would go about it if I was going to do it. But yeah, try and find someone who breeds clownfish. Gully Mass Design at Will. What are your thoughts about a fox face to remove bubble algae, and what should you recommend? Fox face rabbit fish are awesome fish for dealing with bubble algae. They're actually, they're cool looking and they will pick at your rocks. They're constantly grazing. They definitely work well. Tons of people have told me as well they work great for bubble algae. So I think that's a good one, and they're cool looking anyway, so they're great fish for the tank. Danielle, my tank's been running for 18 months. Everything is happy, but I haven't grown any coralline algae. Is that normal? My rocks are like a dark green. So there is also dark green coralline algae. So you might just have the green algae in your tank and not the purpley one. Quite possible. Jacob Mills, best, coolest Gobi and shrimp pair for a new 8-foot. Shrimp and Gobi. I mean, pistol shrimp, pretty cool. I've had tiger pistol shrimp in the past, and they're bigger than the candy cane. However, he also took out a couple gobies on me. He was not a friendly guy. He took ages to find one that he would actually pair with. So that was a bit of a hurdle. The candy cane ones seem to be fairly tiny and pretty easy to pair up. As for which gobi, that's kind of personal preference. When I had the pair, I had a Watchman gobi at the time. No, I have a diamond gobi in this one, more for sand bed. I don't think I have any gobies in this one, actually. I don't know. So let me know if anyone has the comments of what's your favorite gobi shrimp pair. Let Jacob know. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else is really cool ones. Watchman gobies are a cool one. They're yellow, they're bright. They're kind of a fun one, but there is lots of other unique ones out there. Reef Keeper had 2 straight days of bad reefing luck. Oh no. Yesterday found a split my peller. I saw your post on Instagram. That sucks. 1 month out of warranty. Sucks even more. Power outage this morning took out one of my EVAs. Oh geez. Hopefully it's just that little module that you can replace for like $15, Phil. But that sucks. Louis. The late Jake Adams was a proponent of corals before fish, post-cycling new tank. What are your thoughts? I think you are cycling a tank for the fish more than you are for the corals. I've had corals live in a bucket of water with a power head and a heater and a light. So you're not really cycling them for the corals. That being said, certain corals like acros and other ones, they will survive, but they don't seem to thrive until the tank's a little more established. It's probably likely to do with like kind of the bacteria load and balance in the tank. But yeah, easier corals, absolutely, you can add right from the beginning. I've added them tanks right away, no problem. But fish, on the other hand, again, you need a nitrogen cycle to make sure there's nothing toxic in there for them. MW Eggman Mwaiko. M Wegman. Probably say your name wrong. What type of pellet food do you use to auto feed in your sump? I don't have that currently set up, but I was using the PE pellets, so Piscean Energetics. They make mysis, and they basically had mysis turned into pellets, and that's what I had in my auto feeder. Finally made one. Welcome, Luke. Dave's Plantification. Welcome, Dave. One arm reefer. Cheers for that. You are welcome. I'm struggling with flow, but I put 2 narrow 3s at that end and hate it, but only way I can get what I want. That's there and fall. Yeah, so it depends on your lighting. If you have, like on mine, I have it floating. There's nothing there. On this tank, for instance, which I made as a peninsula, and if it actually was a peninsula, focuses on it, that end there, that I could hide a power head running along the light bar and put like a small one right at the bottom. And that wouldn't be too bad if I actually ran that one in peninsula mode. I would probably do that, but if the floating light bar, then I wouldn't want to do that. So food for thought. Any advice on setting up peninsula? I should do a stream on just peninsulas. If you got specific questions, let me know. Otherwise, I can do some peninsula rambling in a bit. Sleeping Giant, welcome. How do you manage vermitids? So vermitids are a pain. I do have some in this tank, which is still a bit of a pain. I do plan on getting rid of them at some point. Bumblebee snails is kind of like the classic go-to for vermitid. They're the only thing I know that actually eats them and will kill them. You can manually, break them off and super glue over them, kind of like Aptasia, you can little super glue to them. You can do a very similar thing with the vermitids, like break them or smother something over the shell, putty, super glue, and that will work. But again, that can be a lot of work. If it's a minor one, probably not a big deal. But if you have, hordes of them, I don't know if it's worth it. Now, probably 2 years ago, I had Mike Plett on for a stream, and he was telling me that he was dosing calcium carbonate powder, which is basically what coral snow is. And he was saying that helped kind of choke them out and reduce them. Now, again, he's the only one I've heard that from. Like, whenever I hear people with them, I always ask just to see if I can find someone else that did something similar. Take it with a grain of salt, but it might be worth a try. Brits Reef. Just put some pods in both tanks. I have added Fido and noticed that my phosphates have gone to 0 on both tanks. Says Fido lower phosphates. It is possible. If you have really bright lights in your tank, you could potentially be growing the phyto in your tank. So if there's enough in there, because when you put a light on it, it is growing, and you have to feed it what's called F2, which is its nutrients. Now, if you have a ton of phyto in your tank, you have very bright lights, and it's living in your tank, and it is basically growing, it's going to absorb nutrients. So it's certainly possible for it to be absorbing nutrients. Niagara Fire Curls, welcome. Quanvo, Red Sea had lots of problems with their tanks, seam leakage. I have seen a number of posts about those. Did they correct it? Is it safe to buy a tank from them? I've only had small Red Sea tanks. I had the 20-gallon all-in-one nano. My larger tanks have either been water box or custom tanks. So I would really hope they would have fixed it by now. I'm hoping it was just like one single run or model that they did. I'm pretty sure they changed their stand, have less stress on it, and a few other things. So hopefully you're safe. But I cannot confirm that for sure. Reef Keeper, pretty sure it's that little power supply. Yeah. Oh, you already have some on hand, you're set. Already had fixed several of mine. I'm upgrading to the Meanwhile ones. I almost feel like I should order one of those little couple Meanwhile ones just to have it on hand. But yeah, I mean, it's soldering 4 wires and saving yourself a huge hassle, so definitely a good DIY if you know how to solder, and if not, you should learn how to solder, because it's pretty easy. Walter Atkins, I'm plumbing a tank with an eShops Eclipse. But sump only has 1 drain. Suggestions on how to plumb it. If you can add a second drain, that would make your life much easier since you're putting on a new overflow. Depends on the size of the drain. Sometimes you can tee them together. Generally, when you have 2 drains coming out from your tank, one of them is a full siphon with a gate valve. You can use a ball valve. I'd recommend a gate valve just because it won't gum up over time. But it will be your full siphon, and the second drain is just a trickle. So ideally just move it, add that second drain. You can put it anywhere in your sub, doesn't matter where it is. All your main flow is going through your main drain, and that's just the trickle, just, you know, acts as a bit of a backup. If the other one ever got clogged, then it's going to go through the backup drain. Okay, tips to battle algae. PO4, 0.05, NO3, 3, 10 to 15. In my opinion, those are great ranges to be. Tank 6 years old, been battling the last 4 months. I pick it out. Tangs, rabbitfish, just seem to can't get rid of it. First of all, what type of algae? If it's something like hair algae, honestly, like, add an urchin to your tank. I had a bunch of weird algae in here a while ago, and I have 2 tuxedo urchins in here now, and they've literally decimated. There's nothing left for algae in there. So tuxedo urchins go a long way if you want to up your army a little bit. Woody, if I had a Peninsula, I'd strongly consider a gyre that could hydrate the surface. I've been debating trying that. Bonus points if you can mount it to a Euro brace to avoid the side magnet. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. It is a good way to do it. Especially if you can mount it to the top. That is cool, because then you can have it almost floating in the tank and not see much of it. I've been debating trying a gyre in this tank. I don't necessarily need it, but I think because it's so shallow, it would be good to fire water across the top back towards the overflow. So it may happen at some time. Is that maple syrup burning? I don't know, probably. Walter Atkins, thanks for the 199 super chat. I have a lot of maple trees in my yard, but most of the mountain trees are pine around here. Mikey, glad you're doing okay. I was worried since your last update. Sending you good vibes. Thanks for everything you do for the community. Thanks, Mikey. I appreciate it. It's a bit breezy out there, but it's actually the first clear day we've had in like a week. And it rained a lot last night, which was a huge help. So that is quite good for the local city and the fires. Stressful weekend. Good day, sir. Good day. John, huge difference has it made it you have a child looking after your tank? How much of a difference has it made to you having a child looking after your tank? My tank is much more neglected. Straight up, it is. This tank, I did have some coral die because of my own laziness. I was doing a water change. I had the big bucket, and I literally dumped the rest of it in. It pumped my salinity up to 40, and I just left it there for weeks before I got around to like sucking it out and redoing it, and I lost some euphilia. And it's, really my own fault for neglecting it. But other than that, it's not bad. The water box, again, same thing. I do like the minimal maintenance, but I used to be a lot more proactive. Like, it's gonna be on my to-do list to do some deep cleaning, like on some of my return pumps and things that have been neglected for a good year plus now. So, they definitely need it. So I would say I used to do that stuff a lot more than I do now. Now it's like, okay, make sure the dosing's topped off, clean the glass every few days and feed the fish. And everything else for the most part is automated. Now that being said, my little guy's 14 months now, so he's getting older, and he still sucks up all my free time, but I'm starting to give the tank a little more love again, like life's starting to normalize finally, but it's definitely more neglected for the first while, 100% on that one. How do I get that dope hat? If enough people want them, I will get a batch of them made. I will bribe Brian and see what he can do for me to make a bunch. I do have a bunch of different colors and different combinations, so I got a bunch of samples of different ones for fun. But if enough of you want them, I'll see what I can bribe with them to make some cool edition runs of them. What is your live sand preference in a mixed reef? Live sand, I generally go for the special grade by Carib Sea, mainly because of the flow. If you use any of the fine or the sugar sands, they're going to blow around more, especially if higher flow. They're going to get the little sand dunes. And even in this tank, because it's so shallow, this area I'll tend to get little bare spots a bit. And in my Peninsula at first, it would have, same thing, I'd have, either of those start to sand dune after a while. So, gentleman I was talking to last night about this similar thing, because he's like, how do you have your power head so high? And his are at 45%. I think mine are at 75%. But I had to work it up there over probably 6 months or more, where every few weeks I'd turn up a few more percentage. And as the tank settled in, I was slowly able to add a little bit more flow to it. NSB reefing. Would you risk resealing a 300-gallon DD that started leaking? It's a tricky one. On a small tank, I probably would. I would be more hesitant on a big tank. If I had a tank that was leaking, I would honestly just use it as an excuse to upgrade to a new tank. You absolutely can reseal it if you're confident with it. Silicone does work wonders, but again, everything has to be extremely clean. If you do add armored corners into it, you're going to have more surface area bonding the glass. So, I mean, you're probably fine, but it is a big job. It's not hard per se, but it's a big job. Simple or Reefer, when moving or replacing a tank, do you recommend replacing the sand or keeping what you have? You need to swap out your tank for roughly the same size. Okay. So if you were someone that did weekly water changes and you cleaned your sand all the time and vacuumed it, it's probably pretty good. It's not necessarily going to be full of junk and cause, if you stir the sand up and your tank turns to a cloud, there's a lot of grossness in your sand. And when you disturb that, it's going to release all that nasty into your water, and you don't necessarily want to put that into your new tank. So I tend to use 90%, mostly new sand when I do a new tank. Now, that being said, sand isn't really new or old. It's like clean or dirty. All sands use sand, right? It all comes from the ocean. So new is basically clean sand, in a bag, pre-rinsed. If you want to reuse your sand, you absolutely can, but you need to clean it really well. And the easiest way I found to do that is put it in a 5-gallon bucket, take a garden hose, shove it in the bottom, let all the flow go, and let all the nasty percolate up and spill out. And I've done this in the past. It took about half an hour running the garden hose for it to finally be pristine and clean. However, doing this is going to kill all your beneficial good bacteria, so you're basically starting with new dry sand in a sense again. But just from not a huge pain in the butt perspective, I tend to just put new sand in it. You could certainly take a couple handfuls of old sand and mix it in just to help spread the bacteria on your tank, which will probably have some benefit for sure, and I have done that. Watkins, thanks again for the super chat. Dedicated Reefer, keep it up. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys very much. I do appreciate it. Where's Dan? Thank you for your thoughts. I am a beginner. I have become a sponge in learning. Happy to help. If you've got any questions, ask away. One-armed Reefer, just want to say thanks about the Peninsula. You're welcome. I was going to set it up as a normal tank, but asked you a few months back what you would do, and you convinced me to go that way. This is built as a Peninsula, but I have it set up as a normal tank. I put a $20 piece of vinyl on the back, and now it's running as a normal tank. But if I ever move to a space, then I can flip it sideways and use it as a Peninsula. So I kind of made it that way to have that option in the future. I knew I didn't have the space now, but maybe I will later. So it's kind of a cool way to do it. Devin, if you get the hat, take the Velcro patch. Interesting. Might be easier to come up with ReefDudes patches. Yeah, Ryan made me a bunch of these ones with just different color patches and different color combinations, which is kind of cool. Haven't tried the Velcro ones yet, but I was pretty stoked with the ones he sent me. Do you keep any acans? If so, do you target feed them? If not, how are they growing? I used to have acans. I used to have a very nice acan garden. However, the copper band decided that the acans were delicious, so they eventually dwindled down on me, which sucked. Acans will survive without feeding, but they will be less colorful. If you feed acans, they will be substantially more colorful. After doing this for a month or two, you'll be like, where did all these colors come from? So they absolutely do benefit from feeding something like reefroids or small particulate foods. So I think it's worth feeding them personally. I do kind of miss mine. Do wish that the prior copper band did not destroy them all, but c'est la vie. Dustin, when you started dosing calc, do you just go for the full amount of your tank's evaporation? If you don't dose calc anymore, is there an amount that maintains alk and calcium? So you can't necessarily say how much to dose without really knowing your tank consumption. If your tank consumes a lot of calcium alkalinity and you're dosing a lot of 2-part, then yes, I would probably just start dosing full evaporation. If your tank has a very low consumption, then you're probably dosing less. But, assuming you have a tank with a decent coral load, you can probably dose as much as you're evaporating. And if your levels go too high, then maybe just dose a less potent calc. So, put a scoop or two less in your container as you're mixing it. That's one way to think about it. John Wright, have to go to bed. Grandkids in the morning. Sweet dreams, John. Thanks for hanging out. Simple Reefer, thanks. Thanks, ReefDudes. You're the man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Stressful Reefer. I use Hannah Milwaukee 2 refractometers, and not one is reading the same thing. They're calibrated and reading 35. Safe is taking an average. Yeah, if you have multiple meters and they're all different, taking an average is probably your best bet. Same thing, if you don't have a very accurate thermometer, take 3 cheap ones and just average them out, and you should be close enough. As long as they're within a point or two, I'm sure you're good. If it's drastically off, maybe there's an issue with one, but otherwise, you should be safe. Mohammed, plan to buy a 300 by 60 by 60 centimeter Peninsula. Very cool. Flow solutions like the Vortex Abyss, Pantaray are too costly. Yes, they are. If you have like a 10 foot plus tank, too much maintenance for a gyre, any better alternatives for me? I went with MP60s. Again, they're not the cheapest option, but to go 6 feet in my tank, they had a lot more oomph compared to the MP40, and that's why I went with them. Yeah, but I agree though. Like to me, it was like the happy medium of fancy without going crazy, and they've been working very well on my 6 foot tank. 300 centimeters. What is that in feet? 3 centimeters to feet. Current tank. Yeah, 10 feet. That's a long tank. That's pretty sweet. Gyres do work well, but again, yes, they are more maintenance. The newer ones are supposedly better. I haven't used a gyre in quite a while, so I might try one again. But the other consideration, if you want to go this route, is if you haven't set the tank yet. If I did a tank that was 10 feet, I would probably look at doing some closed loops. Dan, if you're still in the chat, I know you did a bunch of closed loops, but you could have pumps anywhere you want in the tank, and you won't have any power outs in the glass. And if I did a big custom Peninsula in the future, I would almost consider doing that, just for how awesome it would look, and no equipment, no gear, no wires, right? It's all hidden underneath the stand. Angel's Reef, ozone question. Do you think I can overdose my water box with 25 mil Sanders ozone running 24/7? Probably yes. I wouldn't run it 24/7 personally. First question, do you have an ORP probe on your tank? Ideally, you should if you're doing ozone, just to make sure you're not going too high. In the past, I used a 50 milligram unit running at about half, so roughly 24, 25 milligrams is what you have. And that was on 150 gallons-ish. And same thing, whenever you do ozone, I've only ran it at nighttime. So the 130.4 is a bit smaller, so yeah, 24/7 I think would be too much, personally. Unless there's a dial, turn it way down. But run it just for a certain chunk of time at night. I think you're a little safer. How much manganese are you weekly or monthly for them gonnies to keep? I will look for you. Alright, so I do have manganese, which does get dosed, and I roughly 5 mils every week or two. Now, I shoot for weekly. It doesn't always happen, but that's roughly what I do. So that's manganese. I do have some broad spectrum trace elements on a dose, so I also dose, so there's likely some in there as well. I haven't done an ICP test in way too long, so I'm probably under rather than over, but give you a rough idea. Dedicated Reefer, need help. What's up, Dedicated Reefer? We need help with. Recently added a copper band butterfly. I'm glad he's eating, but he's only eating bloodworms. Is that okay, or does he need more variety of diet? As long as he's eating, you're in a pretty good place. What I always recommend for copper bands is to get fresh manila clams from the seafood market and throw them in the freezer and just toss one of those in every few days. It has literally been like a 99% success rate of copper bands eating those. And that's usually how anyone that I've had, I got them to start eating, and then I eventually get them onto mysis. And they usually will go for mysis after a while, but when they're new, the manila clams are magical because almost all of them and almost every single person I've recommended this to is worked with. So if you do want to add a little more variety to the diet, find a seafood market and pick up some of these manila clams. Where's Dan? Time for dinner. Catch you next time. Thanks, Dan. Have a good night. Doesn't saltwater have a tendency to stratify as far as salinity? Possibly. So stratification is basically when you have your bucket of salt and the different elements that are mixed together for the salt will potentially go to different layers in the bucket as stuff wiggles around, bigger, smaller particles, like how the finer sand will work its way to the top. And similar thing, if the bucket was very stratification, that could have an effect. If you were worried about it, you could literally just roll the bucket around and remix it up. But it's usually not enough to worry about. And I wouldn't think that salinity would be affected because most of the bucket is salt. It's more the trace elements or your elk and that type of stuff, I think, that would be more affected by stratification. Dedicated Reefer. I did not skip you. We got it. Sammy's Reef. You the man, Dev. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Sammy. Sammy D. New to it, just got some bottles today. Bottles of what? What did I miss on that one? Welcome, David. Is there a way to calibrate the Apex ORP probe? Yes, but it's not worth it. There is some, I forget the name of it, but there is some overly priced. It's a very expensive to do. It's like 80 or 100 bucks. And it's a pain because it's whatever the acid or whatever the one, mind blanking on the name for it, that you need to do it. Really, if your ORP is a little bit off, it doesn't really matter. You're using it more for the trending. ORP always reads around 350-ish. That's a good place to be since dosing ozone. And ozone a few months back, my reading was 250 to 270. Okay, so if your ORP is hanging around 350, you're in a good place. If that's working by running it 24/7, I would say you're probably fine to keep doing what you're doing. As long as it's, less than 400, I wouldn't worry one bit. Mine, I let it go to about 410, 415, and then it shuts it off if it goes above that. David, any advice on reoccurring cyano? Well, I just did a treatment on that yesterday, or a couple days ago on this tank. It's one of those things. I'll put up with it for like many months, and eventually one day I'm like, that's it. I'm obliterating it because it kind of goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back. In theory, it might be semi-nutrient related, but again, it is a bacteria, cyanobacteria, right? So this ChemiClean works wonders. If there's also the KZ version, CyanoClean, that's the more natural approach, but it's a lot slower. You're into it 6-8 weeks plus, like as a long-term solution, where this is a 3-day solution. So it depends on how much is bugging you. Mark, do you have a first fish recommendation for a 65 gallon? you like clownfish, they are always a classic. And they're very hardy. That was a good one. But yeah, depends if you have any favorites. But yeah, clownfish, always super duper easy. Damsels are hit or miss. Some are awesome, some are punks. Blennies are pretty cool fish. Dottybacks they can be territorial though. I got a neon one in there. He's pretty good. But yeah, clowns are always classic. Everyone loves them. They're easy. They're hardy. They're bubbly. And 4-bag box was a game. The 4-bag box was a game changer. Yeah, so that's when they have 4 things of salt in one pre-mix. So then you don't really have to worry about stratification because you just use the whole bag and it's fully mixed. I do agree. That is quite handy to have those. Dart Reefer 14. I dose calc wasser about 3,700 liters. I think you're doing milliliters, but we'll go with it. So 3.7 liters of a VAP. My elk is 7.6 and it dips at midnight to 7.1 DKH. How can I keep it steady? Are you dosing calc 24/7? Is it through your ATO? Like with mine, I dose my calc at nighttime, but that's more to like level out the nighttime dips. How often do you replace your ORP probe? I don't really. I don't even think I've ever replaced mine. So it's going strong. Thanks for the closed loop. I'm trying to strike a balance between a thriving tank and not having to sell a kidney to fund it. I agree. Thoughts on multiple Nero 7 pumps. Are they strong enough for a 10-foot tank? I did a video with the Nero 7 on my 6-foot tank, and it was able to do some pretty solid flow in there. Like, check out that video afterwards and just see the flow of my 6-foot tank. Like, obviously, I can't 100% stay in a 10-foot tank because 7's the biggest I got so far. But Nero 7, I'll find you the video even. But I was fairly impressed with how much flow it had. Like, it was pretty solid for its size. So, I don't know, watch this video later. How would you go about moving a 120-gallon 4x2x2 to a new stand? Ooh, that's a lot of work. I would, depends how much rock you have in there. If it isn't insane, and you had somebody that had, or I'd rent one of those little jack stands, I guess they're called, where you have like the flat table and you can pump them up and down. Personally, I would probably rent one of those for the day. I would jack it up beside the tank so it's roughly level. I would have a couple brute containers, drain all the water out of the tank, and then shimmy the tank over onto the little pallet stand when you can actually move it with all the weight. Roll it out of the way, put your new stand in, then same thing, jack it a little bit higher, put it back, and then refill it with water. Like, obviously you'd want to catch your fish and all that jazz as well to remove them, but that's probably how I go about it. But that sounds like a lot of work, so I wish you luck on that one. OU A112 Reefer. What's the longest time you went without a water change, and what's your personal opinion on water changes? I have probably went many months without a water change. Probably like 6-8 months without one. Now, water changes are doing two things. You are either removing something or you're adding something. So you're removing toxins in the water. It could be removing excess nutrients. Could be contaminants you're removing. When you add your fresh water, again, you're getting your elements in it. You're getting your trace elements. If there's nasty things in the water, you're diluting it. So you can not do water changes by either replacing or taking away those things through other means, right? It could be a refugium skimming to remove the extra nutrients. You could be using carbon to absorb any toxins. You could be doing your dosing for trace elements and everything else and not do water change. So you can certainly not do them and deal with things over other means. However, the water change kind of accounts for stuff that you don't think of. So, if you're sanitize or wash your hands, you put your hand in the tank, maybe all that stuff is leaching into your tank. And over time, that stuff can potentially build up in your tank and it might cause issues long term. So even if you don't do them all the time, I still think it is good to do them once in a while for good measure, so you are diluting anything that might eventually cause an issue from building up. So on a small tank, honestly, just do your water changes. On a large tank, I can understand the desire to not do them quite as often because it can be expensive, right? And they're a lot more effort. So they're all different considerations. So I still, every 4 to 6 months, I still like to do a big water change. I used to have it set up my auto water change to a gallon a day, which I gotta really set that back up. I redid my mixing station, so gotta finish that off and get it rolling again. And buy more salt. Versa or Kimura X1 Pro for calc. Either option is going to work well. I've used them both. Both work great for that purpose. I went all Versa now just because they're quieter. I haven't used the X1 Pro, but I had the original X1. And it was, oh no, I had the FX STP. And it worked well. There was certain, but I was using it for calcium reactor. In certain speeds, it had this weird harmonic noise, and the Versa didn't. That's why I swapped to the Versa. So I personally went down the Versa rabbit hole because I don't know, I think they're cool pumps. You can do a lot with them. But either one will do the job for you. David, I bought an Apex Junior a couple months ago and still haven't set it up yet. You're slacking. Any tips or videos you have would suggest for the initial setup and pH probe calibration. I am fairly certain I have done an Apex setup video many moons ago, so it's probably different because it was a while back. Setup. I do say though, they do make it pretty easy with the new ones. And okay, this is a really old video, but you can try watching that one later. I do go Apex setup, and I do kind of, but that was partially walking through setting up the new one and upgrading from the older Apex. But they do a pretty good job of walking you through it with like the new Apex. I put the A3 Pro one on this tank, and yeah, I was actually pretty amazed at how easy it was compared to how I did it many years ago. Benny's Reef. Everyone goes clowns first. What would you recommend to add second? For example, with your tank, are you going to add the same fish each time or have a new one? It really depends on what you like. Like, from a functional perspective, adding a small tang is wise for algae prevention. Like in this tank, I have a white-tailed bristle-tooth, super cool little tang. You know, and he does a job, he's always grazing, and if you add him in the beginning, he's going to potentially munch at any algae before it ever turned to an issue in your tank. You know, there's like Banggai Cardinal are cool fish, you know, copper bands are cool fish. Like there's tons of really cool fish out there, so part of it depends on what fish you really like. You know, I like, you know, I got neon gobies in here, I got Midas bloodies, like there's lots of cool little fish in here, so part of it really is just what do you like, you know. Adam Norris, thanks. You're welcome. Angela, what are the cons of owning a Peninsula tank? The only real con in my mind is it is more challenging to have flow at the Peninsula end of the tank. So if this is your tank, this is your overflow wall, you want this end to look pretty. So you only have flow pushing this way. And that's the biggest challenge in a Peninsula. Like you can have flow circling the tank, you know, or you could have tons of power heads on one side pushing tons of extra flow and making like a gyre around it. You know, in one of my prior ones I had a gyre just under the overflow kind of circling it this way, so there's lots of different ways to go about it. But yeah, flow in a longer Peninsula, a 4-foot tank's probably not an issue, but when you get to the 6-foot and larger, just the flow at the far end is a consideration. Like if you look at mine, back to my deli cup. Okay, so if this is my overflow wall, like on mine, my rock starts high, and as I went down the tank, I kind of slowly like worked it down. And I kind of did that so the higher flow stuff is more for acros, and the far end of the tank is more like zoas and softies. Like there's some acros, but there's more euphyllia, there's more lower flow stuff. So part of it is considering the flow from one side of the tank to the other side of the tank, and it's your placement in coral in your aquascape. That's another big consideration with Peninsula over a normal tank. But if you plan it out that way, so you place your higher flow stuff by that end of the tank and your lower flow stuff at the end of the tank, then you kind of work around that issue of the higher to lower flow as you go the distance. But those are the biggest difference in a consideration on a Peninsula, I'd say. Dirt Reef, I use a more continuous duty 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. the next day. For calquaser and my lights turn off around 10 p.m. Now if I want to get elk up to 8 to 8.5, do I have to dose and add calcium along calcium? If your calc is maintaining whatever level you're at now, fine. Then just do a dose to bump up your levels and let your calc keep maintaining it there. If you have to dose on top of what you're doing, then, you know, you can obviously up more of your calc dose. So a similar thing, you know, with a calcium reactor or calc. If it's maintaining, then manually bump it up rather than trying to up your dosing with that to try and up it for you, because then you're going to have to turn it down again when it's too high. Just let it be stable, manually bump it up, and you'll be good. Ron, I do a 5-gallon automatic daily, also turf scrubber. 5 gallons a day. It's a good water change. I don't know how big your tank was, but it sounds pretty good. David, definitely slacking. Happens. I look the same. I do. Brett's Reef. I was looking at the Hydros controller. What's your recommendation on one? Looking at the Control X3/XP8 Pro Pack. Buy the one with the wired power bar and not the Wi-Fi one. That's my recommendation. I haven't used the newer one. I did use the original one. But yeah, if I was doing it again, lots of people seem to really love it. I had a bit of flakiness with the Wi-Fi power bar. That's why I'd only buy the wired one now. But I also have many access points in my house, and I don't know if that played into it or not. If maybe something weird is going on there. But Brian Jarvis. What's up, Devin? What's going on, Brian? With the Avast calc stir, how often do you add more calc, and how much do you add when you completely clean out and start over? Okay, so I have the Avast K2 on the water box. I add a scoop, which is probably half a cup, I believe, and I add that. In theory, I should add it once a week, but I'm going to say somewhere between 7 to 10 days is when I feel it starts to lose potency. So roughly a week, week and a half-ish, I'll add another half a cup scoop to it. And probably every 6 to 8 weeks, I'll dump it out, rinse it all out, and then refill it and start fresh again. So that's what I would do with mine, and I feel it works pretty well. It's very possible I slack and leave it longer between cleaning it out, but adding that half a cup or so every 7-10 days has worked well. And I would put probably 4 scoops, so I'm going to say 2 cups-ish after cleaning it out. David, would you recommend a calc reactor to save doser heads, or is it not worth the hassle? Either way, you need a dose head to feed it, so you're not really winning either way. You can mix up a container, like those are 5-gallon ATO containers I'm using as dosing containers, but you could mix that all up full of calc and then dose out of it using a dosing head. Or if you're using a calc reactor and feeding RODI through it, you still need that dosing head to pull from RODI and push through the calc reactor. So either way, you're doing a dosing head. It's personal preference. The difference is it's less work with the calc reactor, because if you pre-mix your calc, unless you have a massive container, you're going to be doing that daily or every couple days, where a calc reactor can go weeks at a time, or your couple seconds to throw in one scoop. So it's just a different level of maintenance and effort, but otherwise you're still using the dosing head. So personal preference. That's a weird one. Thank you. Yep. Why couldn't you do a closed loop and make it return to the opposite side of the peninsula, but on the bottom? You could. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. And I have thought about that too. You can just have like your return pump, shooting at the peninsula and bouncing back. You could totally do cool stuff like that. And hey, it would be a cool way to keep less stuff around your tank, right? I've never done a closed loop. I've always been this somewhat fear of water, leaking hundreds of gallons onto the floor. But realistically, none of my other bulkheads leak. Why would that one, right? And same thing. You just have shut-off valves underneath it. Than, are you still in the chat? Have you ever had Tidal Gardens? Dan, if you're still listening, have you ever had a closed loop leak? I am curious. You might have a few drops as you disconnect it for maintenance to clean it, but otherwise, you're pretty safe. So one day I will do it. David, okay, I thought your dosing calc through the dosing head would cause issues long term. It would be harder on your tubing if you are dosing calc through it. Calc is a high pH, so it is caustic and it will break down stuff quicker. So you probably will have to maintain your dosing heads a little more frequently if you're dosing calc through it. Where if you're feeding a calc reactor, you're only putting RODI through it. It's super gentle. Like the Versa that I use for dosing calc runs 24/7, and that I think I've changed the dosing tubes in it once after like a long time. So it lasts a long time. If I tried dosing some very nasty caustic stuff through the Versa, and eventually it started to eat away at the plastic on the fitting because it was such a high pH. So calc isn't as high as the stuff that I was dabbling with, but same thing, it is harder on it than RODI. So yeah, for sure, definitely another consideration. Currently battling vermitid snails. Do you have any tips? I would pick up an army of bumblebee snails and start there. Go pick up 5 or 6 of them and just let them go to town on the tank, because they absolutely do work. More the merrier, the more you're going to get through it. Any nemesis corals lately? Good question. Those minty green zoas in my tank, I wish those were never added. Anyone wants them, they can have them all. Angel's Reef, thanks for the super chat. One last question. Will you recommend to go with a 7-foot Peninsula tank or a conventional tank? I'm thinking about upgrading my current water box 130.4. It depends on your house. If you have a spot for Peninsula, they're super cool tanks. They are more of a challenge for flow. However, they look amazing, and you kind of have 2 tanks in one, because you can walk all around it, and you can have different stuff on each side, and it's like having multiple tanks. So I am a big fan of Peninsula tanks. But that being said, so this is a Peninsula that's set up as a normal tank. All I did is put vinyl on the back, and I have power heads on the back. But if I ever swap to a Peninsula, then again, it's going to change it, and the flow will be a bit of an issue, but I'll figure it out. So personal preference, at the end of the day, it really comes down to your space and whatever fits best in your house. That would be my ultimate decision. Dancing with fishes. I'm tired of unclogging tubes going through the KM200. I'm assuming you're pushing calc through there. Calc definitely can clog up stuff over time. One-armed Reefer, do you have you added any Ecotech return pumps to the Apex MSM module yet? Yes, I have. Or is it worth keeping in Mobius? It doesn't make a difference because I don't really change it. I'm not utilizing anything with them. I should. Currently, they're in there. I can adjust the flow through there, but there's 0 difference between that and Mobius. What I should be doing is setting up a feed mode profile to drop it down to a certain message when I'm in feed mode, or certain speed, sorry. So that's what I should be doing. And I will do that at some point. It's on my future to-do list. But yeah, like, you know, when you're Mobius and you have feed mode and you program it and just like a little trickle comes through the pipe, that's what should probably be happening for feed mode. I just haven't got around to it yet. But that is the main reason that I would do it through Fusion. Are you dosing calc 24/7? I have my calcium reactor running 24/7. And then I have my calc only running more at nighttime, and I have my dosing of elk only at nighttime. That's just to like level out my pH dips. The main reason on that one. Reef Keeper, the Versa I'm using for my calc reactor has been going for 2 years. There you go. Only pushing RODI through the reactor. Still looks brand new, 100%. So my dosing, my regular dosing from the Versas lasts ages. The calc one lasts ages. The calcium reactor one, I eat through those like crazy. Like every 3 to 4 months, I replace that one. That one, for whatever reason, the CO2, whatever's going through it, is harder on it, but the rest seem to last a long time. One-armed Reefer, Angela's Reef. Just do it. 7-foot Peninsula. I'll give you a hand, buddy. There you go. Peninsulas are awesome if you have the right space in your house. I think it's cool. My other tank with Versa is moving calc through the line. Tubing needs to be changed every 5 to 6 months. Perfect. Appreciate that, Phil. Devin, what do you think of conches? Mark, conches are awesome. The orange lip, the fighting conches, the little guys are that big. They're great cleaners. I actually have a couple in both of my tanks, and they are constantly cruising around. You see that little like snorkel anteater nose coming out, just cleaning things. I think they're cool. I think they're great little workhorses, so I'm a fan of them. Sammy, just make sure you get an external overflow. Yeah. Any idea when the Hydros X10 and Kraken are coming out? You have those guys on speed dial. That is a good question. I thought it would have been out by now. I think I saw it at Reefapalooza. That's a few months ago now. so I would imagine it would be soon. I know everything in the world was behind due to part shortages after the lovely pandemic times, but I'm pretty sure that it should be soon, I would think, at least. Blue Basin Aquatics, how's it going? Alright, I think I didn't miss any questions. I've been trying to rip through them all, but if I missed anyone's questions, please do ask again, and I will make sure I get it. But yeah, conch is definitely awesome. Peninsula tanks, if you have the right spot, I think they're super cool. As long as it fits the room, you know, you can walk around and appreciate all sides. Now the other thing is too, put your wherever your tank is, put in a room that you spend time in. You know, whether it's your dining room, your entertainment room, living room, you know, your office. Put it somewhere where you're gonna see it and you're gonna enjoy it. Because if you put a tank somewhere that's you know in some basement that you don't use, it's gonna get neglected. It's not gonna be pretty. You're not gonna clean the glass. You know, there'd be little things that are gonna have an issue over time. Where if it's somewhere that you see, you enjoy it, you're gonna put in that extra little bit of effort to keep the tank happier and everything looking awesome. So food for thought, but as long as it's somewhere you're gonna enjoy it, pick whatever tank fits that space. Angels Reef, one-armed reef, we're definitely the Peninsula now. Alright, Angels Reef. Trust yours and ReefDudes taste. Good choice. Stressful Reef, great job. Good stuff. You did awesome. Thank you for your service. Thanks. Best brand ICP test. Honestly, they all work. The big thing is pick a brand and stick to it. I have been using the ATI one initially because it worked with like that Moonshiner calculator, which I was doing. And I like the fact that they tested your RODI, so you can know if there's something you're dosing your tank that's coming through the RODI, and that was a big consideration. So I tend to like the ATI one for that purpose. That being said, if you look at different brands and you do like one brand this month, and a couple months later you do another brand, and a couple months later you do another brand, one, it's harder to look at the trends because they all report it differently in different orders of stuff. And they don't necessarily calibrate their machines the exact same way. So there might be deviations. Like I know people that have sent the same sample to different brands and got different results from different ones. So you kind of got to take it somewhat as a grain of salt. That way, if you're sticking to one, at least you can use it to keep your trending. You know, is your dosing keeping stuff stable? Is it, you know, stuff going down? Are you overdosing it? And I think that's where a lot of the value comes from. One-armed Reefer, thank you for the super chat. First super chat from one-armed Reefer. Boop boop. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Number 1. What do you do with your old water change water? I dump it down the toilet for the most part, just because they're inconvenient to do it. I've been starting to think I might dump it down the driveway to kill any weeds in there, because the salt water will probably kill it. But those are my two go-tos for salt water. Thanks, all. Great advice. Good day. Thanks, Quan. ReefDudes, do you need to disable the dosing pumps when you add calc to the reactor? I do not disable them, I just let them run. Yeah, so I don't dose it, I just keep it going. Cheers again, bud, thanks for the help, most welcome. Trace elements you can't do without, go. Do you do water changes or don't you? If you do regular water changes, you can worry less about trace elements. If you never do them, you should probably dose them. If you don't ICB test, pick up something that's a broad spectrum trace element and just dose the one bottle of mixed everything, because it's going to put you in a pretty good place. If you're hardcore and you do ICP tests on every few months, just pick whatever ones you're deficient in and dose those, because every tank is different, every coral is different, right? If you have a turf scrubber, again, that can suck up certain nutrients. A Chado might suck up, molybdenum and manganese and some of those, and certain corals will suck different ones. So it's hard to say which ones are vitally important, because currently on top of whatever's on my doser, I'm dosing iron, manganese, chromium, and cobalt. Now I used to dose more, but last time I tested, those were the only ones I was really low on, and the rest were fine, so I haven't dosed them in a while. So if you're looking at specifics, it depends what your tank needs, and you don't know unless you test on that one. So it's kind of hard to say that one, just because every tank will be different. Forgot to say, hope the little fella is healthy and well. He is, thank you very much. My wife's actually been painting a really cool underwater mural on his wall. It's kind of like 70% done. So once it gets a bit further, I'll post a picture up later, but it's looking pretty cool. Who makes the tank behind you again? It seems like a decent size, so considering something like that layout for a grow tank. This one's custom made. I had a company called Concept Aquariums make it, and they are in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. So I got them to make it and ship it up. This one is 7'6", I believe it is. 76. Yeah, 7.5 feet ish by 28 front to back by 14 deep. And that's been a really cool tank, and this is just a custom one I had made. If you remember some of my older videos, I used to have a lagoon tank, and it was 28 by 3 feet by 14-ish, something like that, and it was a really cool dimensions. I love the dimensions, so I basically did the same thing, but made it longer to fill up that space, and just did the custom with that. So it's really cool dimensions. It's kind of shallow, but it's still deep enough to look like a nice reef tank, but it's not crazy deep, so it gives you that really cool shallow lagoony vibe. So yeah, custom tank, depending on where you are. I mean, just talk to tank builders in the area. I did do low iron glass and polish the edges to give that pristine look, but otherwise, those are my dimensions. Angel's Reef. Ken, you need to call up and see mine, see the mate, you will love them. There you go. Yeah. Really nice. I have to maybe get something custom done in the States. Yeah, exactly. So it really depends where you are. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to ship it all that way. You're better off finding a local builder. So it depends who's in your area, and just say, there's the dimensions I want, you know, then you get something that perfectly fits your space. Then you're in a pretty good place. Definitely lots of people that do custom tanks down there, so you got options. What's your favorite acropora of all time? It's a tricky one. Color-wise, actually, you know which one I miss? I think I lost it. I have to get it again. Palmer's Blue Millie. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I really love this one. Palmer's Blue Millipora. I used to have one called Palmer's Blue Millipora, and it had vibrant teal polyps, and it had that like bluey green base, but it was so shaggy. It was such a cool one. I don't have any screen sharing going on right now, but it was a really cool one. I kind of missed that one. Right now in my tank, I really do like the Orange Passion. That has very nice colors. I'm a big sucker for millies. I just love the shaggy polyps. But I do miss my Palmer's Blue, and I will have to get it again. But that shows up. It's just super duper bright, crazy shaggy polyps. So that was a cool one. Anything bright and colorful. But yeah, part of me almost wants to try doing a tank of just Millipora one day for fun. Just everything in the tank is just crazy shaggy, swaying around. Big fuzzy sticks flowing with their polyps in the flow. I have a ProStar 230 mixed reef doing BRS 2-part, and I want to start dosing calc. Any recommendations on how much to dose? If you're already dosing a decent amount of 2-part, I would dose however much you evaporate in a day. If you evaporate a gallon a day, or say 2 gallons a day, dose 2 gallons worth of calc, and then lower down your initial dosing, just to keep your levels stable. Because the calc is going to give you the extra pH boost. It's a nice, easy, balanced way to do it. And as long as your levels are in check, you're good. It's always hard to tell someone how much to dose with calc because it depends on how much your tank is using. But you can, if you want to be safe, you can always just start low and every day up it a bit more until your elk, everything's nice and stable. But if you're dosing a high amount already, I would just start with a higher dose and just cut back your 2-part dosing. Saltwater will not kill cow weeds. In fact, it makes them grow better. You think so? I don't know about that one. Auto text, yeah, I feel ya. I use the voice to text all the time, and it always butchers what I'm saying, especially when we talk about reef terms. It just gets completely lost. I don't know. I'm gonna try it next time I do a water change. In fact, I have a bucket of water right there. I'm gonna dump it on some weeds later. Yeah. So because I get asked all the time, how do I know how much to dose with this? It really depends on your elk consumption. with the calcium reactor, dosing, calc, it doesn't really matter. Whatever you're dosing, you kind of have to test, right? So I always look at elk first, since that one changes the fastest. Test your elk, make a guess on your dosing. 24 hours later, test again. If it's stable, you're right on the money. If it's too low, dose more. If it's too high, dose less. Like, if you just think about it that way, it makes it really easy. And you're always safer just starting low and working your way up, right? If you dose too much, you can get in trouble. If you don't dose enough, you're probably fine, right? Your levels might drop a bit. But there is tons of dosing calculators for making a correction, which you can use to bump it back to where you need to be too, if it does get too much out of range. But that's kind of my general gist of it. Alright guys, a good hour in. Let me know if you guys got any burning questions you want me to ask while we're still on. Saltwater won't kill weeds or Florida grass. I'm really curious about this. We'll see if it can handle the Canadian grass. Florida grass is pretty thick, dense stuff though. So we'll see. I am going to throw this one out there one more time on my Facebook page for the Focustronic Doser, since we're talking about dosing today. Definitely reminded me about that one. But I do have a post on there, so you should most definitely enter it if you use Facebook. The second or third post down is one about a Focustronic giveaway, and that's going to be in a couple days. So last chance, get in there for that one. They were kind of teasing a new tester coming out called the Mastertronic Essentials, which they haven't fully even told me what the heck it is yet and spilled the beans. My blind guess is going to be a Mastertronic that has less files that can probably test like calcium, milk, and mag, or maybe calcium, milk, mag, maybe nutrients as well, maybe just the three. I don't know. We'll find out. But anyways, there's the teaser post on that, and the details are coming out soon. But enter that one, you can get a Dostronic DC giveaway if you're going to win. So 2 more days until the draw, or 3 days, so get in there. It's all salt and sand here. Well, there you go. Salt and sand. Yeah, I guess it is. The grass is ready. It's made for it. Just gets all that salty evaporation from the ocean. Dun, dun, dun. Alright guys, I think I'm gonna wrap her up pretty quick here. One-armed Reefer, Angels Reef, Simple Reef, Dedicated Reefer, Walter Atkins, Toe 707, John Reefer, Vermont. Thank you guys very much for all the super chats today. I definitely do appreciate that, so I do thank you guys. Greatly appreciated. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's stream. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, make the YouTube overlords happy. And yeah, we will see you guys on next week's stream. I should be having Lou from Tropic Marine on next week, so that should be a good one. He's always he's a great guest, fountain of knowledge. So it'll be good. So enter the contest. Like the video. Thank you guys for hanging out, and I will